Alright, well, where are we at today? Got my vent mounted. Got my new spark plugs in. But I don't have new plug wires. I broke a plug wire the other day. It just pulled off the end at the spark plug when I was rejiggering some of the wiring. And it's not surprising, these are original 1998. So I ordered new plugs and wires. These are all the original plugs. They're all a little dark, but fairly even, not too oily, so the engine looks like it's in good shape. I went back with the same ones because obviously they run good. It's funny, this is a marine engine, so if you look up marine stuff for the 454, for the 502 or the 454, these MR43Ts, that's what these marine big blocks run, so that's what I went with. Got those all in, and then I had a problem with the wires because I hadn't realized that the distributor has female pockets on it rather than the HEI style, and the set of plug wires I ordered has the HEI style connectors on the top, the males. So well, I figured, okay, fine, I got a crimper for this because I had to make my plug wires for the Firebird way back in the day. So I figured I'd just reuse the existing boots, but the boots on the distributor on the originals from 1998 are just turned into mud, and they're all just shredding. So that was a fail, but I got a new set coming with the right boots on it, and I also have a set of replacement boots and terminal ends that I'll have, and I can correct these because these are, I like these wires, they're good. I've had good luck with them in the past, but they don't work if they don't fit, so now I'll have a spare set, which is good. Still waiting for my air cleaner because FedEx, supposed to have been here 2 days ago. It says it's in Baton Rouge as of yesterday, so maybe it'll come in today, who knows. But you see something's missing up here. I've removed the bumper and the brackets, and actually also just did it for the back as well. The only reason this car had bumpers on it in the first place is when Dad built it. He was living in Connecticut, and Connecticut, well, sucks. Certainly did back then, because they would not allow you to register any vehicle of any sort if it didn't have bumpers. So Dad had to build it with bumpers and the bumper brackets and all that other stuff. And so he did, and then shortly thereafter he got annoyed at Connecticut anyway and did the New England version of the Montana trick and got a Maine license plate, and it was good to go then, but the bumpers were already on it, so they stayed. But since this is getting a trailer hitch, the rear bumper had to go. And the front bumper, I think what I'm going to do, there's some companies out there that make some little things that come out through this hole, and they just got a little piece of stainless rod, just kind of a little push bar right here on each side. I think that'll look kind of neat. I'm going to do something like that. But the main reason it had to come off is I got to get the front end off of this thing, because I need to get that fan out, clean up all of that. I need to move the radiator so I can get all of this other stuff out. I may need to remove the radiator, I'm not sure, I hope not, but I have a feeling I might, because everything is so tight in here. I want to get rid of this shroud, get rid of the factory fan, or the engine fan that's in here. I've got two new pulleys to kind of correct this weird little offset diameter thing we got going on here. And then I got an electric fan, which I'm hoping is still gonna have enough clearance in here, because even without that fan on it, that pulley is pretty tight to that radiator. It's gonna be close. I'm hoping that that's gonna work. She's pretty darn snug in there. But, you know, so the only way to get at any of that stuff is this whole front end has to come off. And it's held on with a bunch of fairly good sized bolts. Looks like 3/8 16 or maybe 5/16 18 bolts down through here. You get to them from the inside. They look fairly reachable. Nothing too bad. I'm going to have to come up with a way to prop the hood up, because obviously that's disappearing. Once we get to that, then it's going to be try to retrofit a bunch of new parts. If I get really rambunctious, everything up here is all wired up good now, but I still need to run the line for the little computer module. I don't want to drill any holes in, or any more holes in the firewall. I know there's a hole under that shifter, because that's where all of the, I think that's where all of the wires for the car go, is through the center hump. So if I get really rambunctious, I may pull the shifter top off, because I need to do that anyway when I convert it to a 4-speed. But I may pull that off and run the wire for the little computer. I believe this electric fan is just being run straight through the switch, which I wasn't aware of. But that's getting a relay, and then I'm going to use one of those infinite wires over there to have the Holly control the fan, assuming the fan fits. Well, whatever fan ends up in there is going to be how it works. It's going to work it. So I figured if I have that ability, I might as well use it. So we most likely won't be running this today unless randomly the stuff I ordered 24 hours ago comes in today, which I kind of doubt. Then I'll get a couple of new belts, because these are 1998 vintage. And get this thing back together, and maybe at that point we can start driving it. The other thing I need to do is, once I get that shroud out of there, you can kind of see that little pipe up in there. That's the overflow. So I need to put a little overflow bottle under here somewhere and connect it to that, just to be legal for the rules on the racetracks. Not a big deal. Just something I didn't even know where the hell that went until I found it online, and I noticed that this spit down over there. So we're going to be doing that. Otherwise, it's going good. Just taking my time. It's funny. I keep thinking as I'm doing all these little things. You know, I watch so much YouTube, automotive YouTube and television, and that's about all I watch anymore. Really drives my wife nuts. But you see, especially the real shows, the produced shows like the Motor Trend stuff, and you watch guys put together a car, and it's done in an hour of airtime, and it's really the equivalent of how I make my videos. Basically, they tell you what they're going to do, they shut the camera off, work on it for 72 days, come back and say, well, we just finished it. And that's really what this is turning into. It's tedious. As I said in one of my earlier videos, you can hack this stuff. I mean, I could have just run rubber hoses for the fuel lines and all that other garbage and zip tied everything together, but that's not really what I want this car to be at the end. I want this to be functional, and I want to be able to drive it a lot. So I don't want to have stuff chafing. I want it to be legal when I go to any racetrack anywhere. So that's what we're going to do. Anyway, we'll be back once we get done swearing at the front end. Alright, we're getting there. None of it's come out terribly difficult. Got the condenser over there. But to do any of this, you do have to take it all out. You can't get anything off without getting the nose off, which wasn't too bad. But you can't get the radiator out without taking the condenser out, which is, I mean, it was already leaked out anyway, but you'd have to evacuate the whole AC system. And you can't get anything in here out without taking the radiator out, which means draining the whole system. So you really don't want to do this on the side of the road. So now I'm debating what I want to do with that water pump. Since it seems to be fine, but I don't know if the engine came with it. So at earliest, or at latest, it's a 98, with 15,000 miles on it. At earliest, it's a 94 or 95 when this engine was bought with that many miles on it. So I may end up, the size of the fan I'm putting back there may dictate what I do with that water pump as well. If the fan doesn't clear that water pump, I may end up having to go electric. It's not a big deal, but we'll see. Anyway, she's moving. I don't think I've broken anything yet. I think I've captured all my fasteners, and everything I dropped has hit the ground, so that's nice. She's moving. I really do want to keep the AC for this thing. I really do. But boy, she takes up a lot of room. We'll see. We're getting there. Radiator's coming out next. Alright, there she is. Everything's out. A little bit of a faff, but we got it without breaking anything. I am strongly moving towards removing the AC condenser and compressor from this thing and just tying it up like I did with the heater lines. I'm going to need all the cooling I can get, and that condenser covers more than 80% of the radiator, and it really complicates this front end as far as working on stuff. I think if I had an electric fan, if it didn't have this fan, it didn't have the shroud, it's got an electric fan in there, I almost think you might be able to do a water pump change without pulling a radiator. If you didn't have this, you'd probably have to take alternator bracket, all that shit's got to come off anyway. But you might be able to do a water pump change on the side of the road without having to take the whole front end off like I'm doing right now. Because you cannot get to these bolts, or pretty much anything else, when the radiator, condenser, and all that other stuff's in there. And that just complicates stuff greatly, because you've got to take the condenser out to get anything else out. Really don't want to, because air conditioning's kind of nice. But from let's make sure we can make it 500 miles without having to get stuck on the side of the road somewhere and can't fix it. That's kind of what I'm leaning towards. But oh well, we'll get there. Now we're going to break down the fan, get these belts off, and take a look at the water pump, see what kind of condition it's in. Feels okay, but we'll see once the belts are off. Alright, so water pump is tight, balancer looks good. Redo the marks on my timing so I can see what's going on. At a minimum, we're going to pull this stupid plug. I couldn't get to it last time. This is a really dumb factory Chevy design. There's no hexes on the screw-in insert. It's just like you'd need a giant flathead screwdriver to get it out. I'll show you and it just rusts in there and you're never getting it out. Damn, I got to put a pipe wrench on it. I may not be able to get it off from here, given even with this, I may not be able to get that off. So we will see. We will see. But I'm going to just test fit the pulleys, the new ones, and see what they look like. Alright, this is the factory stupid that I'm talking about. Those things are put in with some sort of a screwdriver. That will never come out except with a pipe wrench. There is no way to get a grip on it. We are going to attempt to get that out. My luck, it's probably going to break, because I just hate having this cobbled together thing stuck on the water pump, just multiple leak points. But anyway, we're going to see if I can get it in there. I don't know. We'll see. Alright, looks like I'm living right, because it came out There's just enough room to get the pipe wrench in there. And this one was nowhere near as tight as one of the other ones that I had to remove the last time. But now I gotta get a, looks like a 1/2 inch plug. So we will do that in a bit. But I'm a little disappointed. Got the pulley on, it worked out pretty well. Had to do a little spacing, put a spacer behind it just to line it up, because of course it's off by 1/4 inch. But it's pretty clean. I think even if I take the AC out, I'm going to have to run a pulley, run a belt around this idler to help drive the water pump, because, you know, that's all the wrap it has. It's kind of weak. Not a big deal though. Still clear up some stuff. My big fan that I wanted to use won't fit, as I was afraid once I started taking it apart. I don't have enough room here between the fan and between this pulley and the radiator to get the fan in there. There's not a lot of room at all behind this radiator, so I may need to go with a front mount, which I didn't really want to do. I wanted to leave the front open as possible to have airflow when it was moving, but gotta do what you gotta do. So I may end up trying to find something that will bolt on the front of this in place of that condenser. I'm not quite sure what we're gonna do yet, but maybe a small 2-fan unit. Let's grab a junky tape measure here. Maybe a small 2-fan unit. This thing is basically 23-ish by, and the core is 23 by about 14.5. And that's a 16-inch fan I have, which would overlap a little bit, but I could have put some little block-off plates on the side of it, but it just will not fit in the back. And it's a puller only. It can't be set up as a pusher, so I can't just flip it to the front. But we're going to have to do some looking and figure out what we're going to do with that. So I think I'm going to go look and see what's available, because I'm going to have to come up with some sort of a cooling solution for this thing. What it has is not bad. It obviously has worked, but you don't want to get stuck in traffic, because it will not, if you're not moving, it's not going to stay cool where it needs to. And I remember running the air conditioning, even when you were moving, it would get up to 200 plus. So when the air conditioning used to work. So it needs as much cooling as it possibly can get. And so that's kind of what I'm going to look for now. Otherwise, everything looks good. The pulleys are going to work. I need a new belt no matter what. But yeah, I got to find some sort of a cooling fan that's going to fit on the front of that thing underneath the nose. Because the big one I bought, lovely fan, but I'll use it for something. But it's not going to quite do what I wanted. And I don't know that it would even work even if I went to an electric water pump. And then I'd have to remount the alternator, probably have to put the alternator down here, do all sorts of other wacky stuff. So we'll see. I may end up going that route, but right now I think I'm going to leave it like this. Find a shorter belt that can run around this tensioner and just help run the water pump. Take this off, take the hoses out, take the condenser or the filter dryer out, and tie some of these hoses together just to clean them up, get them out of the way. So that's what we got going on next. So that's the space that I'm dealing with, which is just about 2 inches. And there is not a lot of options for pusher fans that would be able to do this. So I may give old Griffin a call. This doesn't have one of their part numbers on it, but I believe, you know, it's a Minotti. It was part of the kit. They made it, obviously. And they make 37 Ford radiators that almost look like this. Most of them, the best I can find, this is maybe over here, a little closer to the center, which would have helped for the alternator clearance, to be honest. But I'm going to call them and see if they can do a shroud, because they do make fan shrouds that go on the inside. Unfortunately, they're pullers, they're on the inside, but that have two 10-inch fans in them. And they're just about 2 inches thick, maybe a little more. I think that's going to be my best option. I have twin 10-inch fans, which is going to be pretty good. But, man, it's going to be snug. I wonder if they could do a pusher. If they could do a pusher unit that had the twin 10s on it, that might be even better. Because there's a bit of room under there. You know, it gets snug right in this area here on each side, but there's some good room down here. There's plenty of room up top. I'm going to have to talk to them about it, but I think that I'm going to need to either do a custom shroud myself for the front with a couple of 10-inch fans, or have them do one on the back. I'd really like to have it in the front so I have a little better clearance here. But we're going to see. It's probably going to be $500 to $700, I would think, just for that shroud and the fans. But this was like a $500 radiator back in 1997. And I think it's over $1,000 now just for the radiator. It's damn near $2,000 if you want the whole combo unit. But we're gonna have to do something, because I need to get some cooling on this thing that I can really move some air. And I don't want to go back with that other shroud because it takes up so much room. But then again, the electric fan's going to take up just as much room. Alright, well, I've taken the dimensions off of the Griffin site, and they do match this radiator. So I think I know which one I need, which one it is, or started out life as before the Minotti additions. So I think I know what I need to ask them about. We'll have to try. I think I'm going to try that. There's not much else that I'm going to be able to do. It may end up going with an electric water pump so I can clear those fans. I might be able to sneak it forward on the bottom a little bit. Obviously the top is kind of fixed, but even that I can adjust holes in the little brackets if I need to, because that actually does stabilize the nose a fair bit when that's up there. That's actually the top radiator mount. It's just mounted two big bolts in the bottom, and then these two little screws is all that's holding that radiator on. So that is absolutely required. I may be able to sneak it forward a ½ inch. So I'm thinking I might be able to get this to work. But I'm going to call Griffin, I guess Monday, because it's Saturday at noontime now, and I'm doubting they're open. But we'll talk to them on Monday and see what they might be able to do for me. It's probably going to take a little bit of work, modify around these. The one, whatever they come up with is going to, I'm sure, mount to this side panel. So they'll have to get notched around that. But this is basically their, I think, 00078 or 68 or whatever, the top 37 Ford radiator they have in the list, because it's just a standard with GM outlets and a manual. It was originally designed for a manual transmission car. This was going to be a manual, so it doesn't have any other radiator, any other hose attachments down there. It's just got a drain there, and that's about it. So I think that's what I'm going to do. That's probably going to be enough for today. We'll see if I get rambunctious again, but now I got to go figure out what my next steps are going to be. So hope you're all having a good day. We'll talk to you next time.